our newest teammates in the All City Network, Jeff Cavanaugh, who joins us now. Must be feeling pretty good about the Cowboys' performance and win over the Browns, 33-17. It was slightly close-ish in the first half, and then the Cowboys just sort of took over. And you guys did an emergency pod this morning too, right? With the Dak contract coming down.
Yeah.
Like, what a day.
We have been blessed with the emergency podcasts. Yeah. Our very first day, we finished our show. We were on the way home. I was almost to the house, and CeeDee Lamb got his money. We turned around. And then today, they do Dak on the same day as the game. So, yeah, we've been partying. We've been having a wonderful time. And I love a good boring game that your team has won before the first half is over. That's my favorite way to football. Some people love close competitive games. I don't like stress. I just like to know that you've won at half and relax and enjoy the rest of the game. So it was great.
Must be nice.
By the time we got done with Bears Post, and it was already as soon as I flipped over and saw what was going on in that game, it was over, to your point, and it was like just early third quarter. It was like, okay. And on the other side of things, Deshaun Watson, that's bad. It's been bad for 4 years now, and it's going to continue to be bad. But how did Dak perform with his new money? I saw his suit. He certainly looked pretty damn good walking in with that $60 million APY suit.
Yeah, apparently he said after the game that a bunch of guys on the team were giving him their sizes of their wrists. And they're expecting that he's going to buy them a bunch of Rolexes and everything. And I would imagine that he wouldn't mind. I think when you get, $231 million of it is guaranteed. I think you could buy a few Rolexes if you need to. I just want like an Apple Watch that's not 3 generations old. So I'm going to try to get a hold of Dak and see if I can't get hooked up that way. But it was nice. It was nice to get all that nonsense over with and know that, they cut it close because it's what they do. They wait too long on their best players, and then they have to give them all the money, and then we can actually go on and play football. But Jerry's good at this. Jerry knows what he's doing. Jerry knows. He loves his emergency pods. He loves keeping his team in the headlines through the entire offseason and then stealing the spotlight from the noon games with a Dak contract. He knows what he's doing. He's good at it.
So I'm going to ask you this because we have a lot of Bears fans here. And can you please explain to them why it makes no sense for them to trade Micah Parsons really ever to Chicago, but especially like now? Because everyone's just assuming because the Cowboys are paying all these players that they're not going to be able to keep Micah Parsons. So anytime, first it happened with the Lamb contract, now it's happening with the Dak thing. And it's like, I don't think that that's happening if it ever happens, and certainly not anytime soon.
No, I've seen that conversation come up in Dallas where it's like, oh no, it's not possible to have the highest paid guy at this, and this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The Eagles have 8 $20 million players per year. Do you know how many of them count 20 million against the cap this year? None. Like the salary cap, you can have lots of fun with. You just slap on 4 more void years, and the amounts that you pay each year go up. Like there's so many ways to pay people, and the Joneses are really good at using that as a thing where when it's about time to start negotiating with a player, you start getting stuff in the paper about why they can't or why maybe they shouldn't, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did always think that if any of these 3 weren't going to get an extension, I would pick Micah, but I would pick that as a very small percentage. You don't get a premier pass rusher who turns into everything that you dreamed he could ever be to then move on from him. You don't pay your franchise quarterback and your franchise wide receiver to let your franchise pass rusher go. You're trying to win a Super Bowl in the Dak 61-21 in the Dak $240 million window. You don't get rid of your best players when you're doing that. You pay them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Zach, you're in the NFC East too. So any comments on the Cowboys win or questions for Jeff?
Yeah, I'm curious from Jeff's perspective, because so much of the dialogue and the outside of Dallas and maybe inside Dallas was how they didn't do anything this offseason, how they were sitting on their hands, waiting for the Dak deal, waiting for the Lamb deal. But what you saw today, it was just an outstanding team against, I think the Browns, especially defensively, are legit, and the Cowboys were having their way. So is there a sense of relief that whether it's the continuity of the team, whether the draft and developing, whether it was simply adding Mike Zimmer and keeping what Dan Quinn had and building on it, that all the concern about the Cowboys' inactivity this offseason might have been overstated?
Well, I'll start with I was a little surprised that you spoke so courteously to me. I didn't know if we were supposed to be mean to each other or how all of that was going to work. I think it's some of all of those things, right? The Cowboys have always been a team that what pulls them out of the fire is like Jerry has the title. Jerry's not the GM of the Cowboys. Will McClay is when it comes to we're going to draft and who we're going to target and all the different things. Jerry just gets to talk because he likes to, because it's his toy. And that's what we would all want to do. And so that's what pulls them out of the fire. Because when we're going through the offseason and they don't sign anybody and they do nothing to make the team better while everyone else does, it's like there's no way this team can be even as good as they were last year. Because you lost, and not that it's a great NFL player, but he was the Cowboys' best run stopper. You lost to Jonathan Hankins in the middle. You lost Tony Pollard. You're going to lose Michael Gallup. You lost Tyron Smith. You lost your starting center, like so many things. And it's like, cool. Now you sign new guys in free agency, and then you go draft. And they do nothing, and they go draft. But what it looks like through camp and one game is that unlike a year ago, when your first two picks were Mozzie Smith and Luke Schoonmaker, who gave you nothing. The whole draft really gave them nothing. This year, it looks like you found a good left tackle, a good starting center. It's kind of cheating. He's not a rookie, but DeMarvion Overshone at linebacker has been the guy in camp that every day, like you just can't not notice him. And then in the game today, he's everywhere. So this happens, and so we get really mad and frustrated with the team in the offseason because they don't do much in free agency, and they absolutely could. They just pretend that the salary cap restricts them in ways that it doesn't other people, and it gets super frustrating to the fan base, but then they just end up drafting and developing again, and they go win 12 games again, and you have to shut up. And I couldn't have imagined that their draft class plus Overshone coming off of an injury would get them off to such a strong start, but that's where we are.
I've got a question for Jeff as well. So when I was out there working on the launch of DLLS and hanging out with the awesome team you guys have out there, one of the things that I was surprised about is the stereotype of Cowboys people is always that, oh, this is our year. This is our year. We're going to go win the Super Bowl this year. And while I was there, that was not the vibe. It was very much like, oh yeah, like we know where this is going now. So I'm just curious to know, after a dominant win like today, has the it's our year vibe come back around?
I mean, for something, the problem with the Cowboys fan base, and maybe it's everybody's fan base, is that there's so many of them, and that it's hard to just represent them in a certain way. I would say that this offseason is the most frustrated and the highest amount of people I've ever seen that are just like, I literally don't care. Get to the playoffs again, don't care. Once you get there, I'll care. It is the most I've seen people be sort of apathetic or angry or checked out that I've ever seen. But after one game, I mean, I know the post-game show, it was popping. People are definitely excited. People are fired up. And maybe that's just our human nature, is that it's very easy when they're not actually playing the games to say that you feel a certain way and that you're going to do certain things. And I'm not going to games and I'm not buying merch. And then you wallop a postseason team on the road that Vegas said was going to beat you. And a lot of people just come right back around. Maybe that's just human nature. It's hard to give a vibe of everybody, but yeah, I think it can turn people around in a hurry because we do it all the time. But this offseason was different because this postseason game against Green Bay last year was the most disappointing. You were the favorite by far. You were supposed to beat that team, and you got smoked by that team. And it drove Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones nuts, and it drove the fan base nuts. But yeah, we're sports fans. You'll turn right back around. You won a game. Yes, now they're going to win the Super Bowl. And I don't think 17-0 is out of the question.
Well, it's not. It's mathematically still possible. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Jeff, awesome having you here, man. And I know we're all thrilled to have not only you but the entire DLS crew going and up and running. I know I was pumped when I heard that's where we were expanding to next. I mean, big, strong NFL market always helps things. And just as we let you go here and bring Bo back in, how are things going so far? You guys, launching right before the NFL season. You guys feel like you're in a groove already?
It's great. It's super fun because especially, as people who work in the sports media world, like we have the places where the people who work for All City are in, where we communicate, Slack or whatever. And when I knew I was going, and then you start seeing the names that pop in, it's all of the people in the city that I know that are the best at covering those teams. And it was just like, oh, this is going to be wild. So I love it. And yeah, big NFL city, defending World Series champions. Don't worry about this season. Luka, and I don't have enough hockey in my brain, but our people do. I think it's awesome. I think it's such a great idea to just have an all-inclusive, as somebody who did 5-hour radio shows for 10 years, not 5 hours a day by a broadcaster, to just have, you love all your sports teams? Bam, one place. You want written and spoken word and video? Bam, all in one place. So I love it. And yeah, I think that we're off to a great start, and I am having an absolute blast. I am thrilled to be a part of this.
Awesome, man. Well, we're thrilled to have you, and look forward to some more Cowboys conversations with you throughout the season here on All NFL Sunday Huddle as well.
We all silly like the mayor.